Welcome. My name is Lily. I've been a professional reader for about a decade, and I specialize in relationships, everything to do with love and relationships. That has become my specialty. And within the last decade, I have learned so much about love and relationships and what we can do for healing and recovery. And today I want to talk about a very common topic that I deal with, which is reconciliation. Right? You've broken up, you've ended a relationship, and there's a lot of contemplation about whether or not you should get back together with your former partner. This is something that I see on a regular basis, and based off of my last 10 years, I have developed a very technical approach to dealing with reconciliation. I work with people one-on-one, but I also work with couples who are going through the reconciliation process. And I can say it's definitely complex, it's nuanced, because you're not just working with healing or repairing the relationship, but you're also, working with complex individuals that have their own needs and their own personal journey as well. So when you approach reconciliation, it needs to be very strategic and very intentional. So today I want to share with you my technical approach, how I personally approach reconciliation with my clients. And I'm just going to go over kind of my strategy. And then I think I want to make some additional videos to go over the spreads that I use. So to go into more detail. So if you're interested in reconciliation work, like with yourself or helping others, then this can be very helpful. And of course you can expand and grow on this. It's a work in progress, of course. But yeah, let's get started. So reconciliation is certainly one of the more complicated situations that I deal with in my practice. When a relationship ends, sometimes that ending is not very clean. Sometimes that ending is not very clear. And when we add pain into the mix, when we're struggling with heartbreak or, grief or sadness and all this other stuff, that pain can make clarity and thinking through a situation all the more difficult. We question ourselves like, did I make the right decision? Should we get back together? Am I feeling the loss that I'm feeling right now? Does this mean that I'm making a mistake? And there's so many things that go through people's minds after a breakup. And if you're considering reconciliation, or if you're wanting to repair a broken relationship, if you're wanting to begin the steps of reconciliation, where do you begin and how? And what I have seen is when there's a breakup, it's like a fresh wound, right? And if you don't know what you're doing, you can actually make the situation worse. You can actually cause more pain, more separation, more fights. Your attempts of reconciliation can actually backfire. So one of the other things that I do is I coach people on how to approach reconciliation with the greatest intention of healing and recovery in mind. So it's not like, and I say this a lot, but none of us were born coming out of the womb knowing how to be in a relationship. None of us. All of us had to learn how to be in a relationship. We have to learn. For some of us, learning how to be in a relationship, learning how to fall in love comes easier than others. But for many of us, we struggle, and we've got to either take wisdom from others, take insight from other resources, or we learn lessons the hard way. So I'm going to really talk about if someone comes to me and they've recently gone through a breakup. Now, I have a different approach for couples. I also work with couples that are healing, and I have couples reconciliation workshops as well. But today I want to talk about if an individual has gone through a breakup and they want to begin the reconciliation process with someone else. How do they do that? How do they navigate that? So the first part, the first thing I do is, before we even get into the weeds of the relationship or what's going on, the first thing I want to do is check in with the querent or the client. Because many times when we're reeling from a breakup or when we're reeling from a situation and we're so inundated with pain, we're so flooded with heartbreak and stress of the changing situation, that we might think that we want the relationship again, but in reality, we're just having a knee-jerk reaction to the pain. We're just wanting to escape the pain that we're in. So the first step is really identifying the root of the situation and making sure that I take the pain level with my client, taking it from here and bringing it down here. Because you cannot think logically or clearly about your situation if you are in pain. Pain, it's not rational, it's not clear, it drives us crazy, it can cause our emotions to be all over the place. And if you're really going to sit down and make a logical decision about whether or not reconciliation is right for you, you cannot be in the heat of pain, in the passion of pain. So the first thing is I want to de-escalate the pain of my client. And a lot of times I have a spread for that. I have a couple, but I have one that's my favorite, which I'll share with you guys. And it's just walking that person through de-escalating the state of pain that they find themselves in. Because sometimes, now this isn't with everybody, but sometimes we just are in so much pain from the situation that we will get back together with someone even if they're not good for us, right? Even if that's not a healthy relationship. And you're making that decision not from love, not because of, peace and maturity and clarity, but you're just making it like a scared animal who's been hurt and injured, and you're just running back into the abuse. We don't want that. So first and foremost, I will tell the client that even if you seek reconciliation, my goal as a reader is not to force reconciliation onto anybody. It's not to force abusive relationships to be healthy, but it's to see what is the ultimate best for both parties, right? So success when it comes to reconciliation, success looks different for everybody. For some people, success is getting back together and healing the relationship. But for other people, success is learning how to walk away, is accepting that the relationship is over and finding peace with that. So even if you come to a session and your intention is reconciliation, ultimately my goal as a spiritual healer is whatever is best for you, your highest good for you and the other person. And we have to respect that everyone has their own free will, everyone has their own personal agency, and people have the right to make their own decisions about their love. But we can't make those decisions if we are inundated in pain. Another very fascinating thing that I've seen in my line of work is people who haven't developed very good coping mechanisms, coping skills for dealing with certain types of pain have very, very difficult times in relationships in general. And you see this with a lot of different people. Like if you have a hard time dealing with rejection or intimacy or acceptance, there's many different types of difficulties that we, as we get older and wiser, that we learn to cope with. And when we encounter those difficulties in relationships, as we develop those coping skills, they don't annihilate us to the same degree anymore. They don't wipe us out to the same degree. So many times when I first get a client, I want to, number one, reduce their pain level. Number two, I want to give them skills for coping with that pain. I need them to get to a place of self-empowerment and security in which they can handle the pain of the situation or handle the pain of the aftermath of the relationship so that they can get to a place of clarity and then move forward from there. Because we really want to take a step back before we even begin the reconciliation process. The first critical thing we have to ask ourselves is reconciliation what I truly want? Is it truly good for me? Or am I just trying to escape pain, right? Maybe your pain is the fear of loneliness. Maybe your pain is rejection and self-esteem. And you find yourself having a hard time dealing with those fears, and your animal brain is saying, well, if I just go back to my ex, if I just force that relationship again, then I don't have to confront my low self-esteem, my fear of rejection or loneliness. And that is not love. That is not love. And that is not a reason to reconcile, right? We don't use our partners or a relationship as coping mechanisms for life's difficulties. And yet that is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially people who haven't developed healthy habits when it comes to processing pain. So first step is we want to de-escalate the pain to bring clarity, and then I want to have a very honest discussion with my client if this relationship was truly beneficial to them or not, if reconciliation is truly in their best interest or not. So that is right out of the gate. Before you even start pulling cards to say, oh, will my ex call me back, or will we get back together? Like, that might just be your pain talking, right? So de-escalate that pain, come to a place of peace, clear your mind, look at the situation with clarity, and really be honest about the intentions and the emotions behind this relationship. I get a lot of clients who come to me who say, I want to repair my relationship with my ex-wife, or I need to get my ex-husband back, or I need to figure out how to make my ex-boyfriend fall in love with me. And they're just thinking about themselves, their needs, their wants, and it's all motivated because they're in pain. And when you finally take them out of that moment of pain, which tarot can be a very, very powerful tool to do so, it's almost like for some people, they have that clarity where they're like, why would I want that person back? Like, why would I want to do that again? I don't actually want them back because I love them. I just want them back because I can't cope with how I feel right now. So that is a very, very important distinction before any reconciliation work that has to be done. My technical approach is, let's de-escalate the pain level in the client. Let's get that person down to a more peaceful level of rationality. And again, everybody's different. This isn't, it's not a one size fits all for everybody. Everyone is unique. So some people, they get to calm rationality and they're able to process pain very quickly. Other people definitely take more time. So it varies. Okay. So after we finally get to a place of calm and clarity, then we honestly evaluate the client and their needs. Then we have a really great discussion. We pull cards on whether or not reconciliation is truly in their best interest, if it's healthy, if it's safe, that kind of thing. Step number 2 is diving deep into the breakup itself and uncovering the root cause of the failures in the relationship. And this is really important because reconciliation requires change. People do not want to go back to the old relationship that they had. They don't want to go back to the old problems. They don't want to go back to, if I know that something is going to fail, I know that something is going to break, I don't want to go back to that. So we need to sit down, take full inventory of the failures in the relationship, the struggles, the problems, and then develop solutions. Tarot is fantastic at this kind of creative, strategic problem solving and to help people take accountability for their own failures, have that personal reflection, have that introspection. I love doing this method when I work with couples who are healing after painful situations, but it can also be very beneficial to singles because a relationship takes two and nobody is perfect, right? So we can all take personal accountability for our own actions, our own failures, and our own wounds. And we can all bring more maturity to our relationships and our situation. Tarot can be a fantastic tool to do that. And it's very important because reconciliation is not about going back to the old relationship. We've already established that the old relationship is not working. It's going to fail for whatever reason. So we have to understand that we're creating something new. And part of that creation is starting with ourselves. We have to create something new, and we also have to put in the work to develop that newness. And there's so many opportunities for change and growth and improvement. I have spreads for that as well, but we want to focus on what went wrong, what were their roles in that dynamic, and what solutions can we bring to the table? What change needs to be present for a healthy reconciliation, right? And I think it's important that when you work on reconciliation, that you realize it's not about blame. It's not about saying, well, this is your fault and this is my fault. It's not about blame. It's about understanding. Understanding and giving the grace and the forgiveness of being human, and allowing ourselves to make mistakes and having the personal integrity to own up to those mistakes and follow through on our word of healing and change. This requires a lot of maturity, a lot of self-reflection, and a lot of bravery too. It's not easy to sit down and hold a mirror up to your face and be honest with your shortcomings as a flawed human being, right? But sometimes relationships bring out those flaws in us. They bring out those weak links in us. And sometimes we hurt the people that we love in the process. And if you're serious about reconciliation, if you have motivations to reconcile, maybe you're married, maybe you have children, maybe you really want to grow in a certain area and you're really sincere about it, then the potential for evolution and personal growth in a relationship can be very profound. But it does take a lot of personal desire to do so, which is why step one is so important, right? Step one, bringing our pain level down and making sure that the client is in a state of clarity that they want reconciliation, because step two is work. It is work. And tarot is a phenomenal way of kind of bringing out brutal honesty in people. Oh my gosh, especially with couples, but definitely revealing honesty and flaws and providing good solutions for that. It's so essential, because nobody wants to go back to the old relationship. They want to go back to something better. So we need to make sure that we have something better. And the first person that we can better is ourselves. All right. Step 3 is building a strategy for reconciliation. Now, this varies depending on the couple, depending on the situation. For some couples, reconciliation, they want to dive right into the work, they want to get right into it, and they're very passionate about healing and falling in love again, and they can do it in a matter of days. Other couples, it takes months, and I have worked with couples that has been over a year plus. I actually worked with a couple that got divorced, and they came to a session because they wanted to co-parent together. They wanted to do some couple work to figure out how to co-parent, and during the process they ended up falling back in love together and getting remarried. That I'm going to say for another day. But when it comes to reconciliation, I am always astounded by humans' propensity for love and change and personal growth, which is why I love to do this. But you need a strategy. You can't just go in blind. You can't just show up at someone's door with 12 dozen roses and say, I really worked on myself. Want to try again? Maybe that works in the movies, but I haven't seen it work in real life. So we need to have a strategy, right? We've done the emotional connections, we've done the work, we've de-escalated the pain, and now we have to develop a strategy. And a huge part of that is practicing empathy and good communication skills with our ex. Empathy, when I say empathy, I'm not just talking about understanding your impact of the relationship, but really understanding who they are, who your partner is, what their needs are, how you can communicate with them in the best way, and how can you put yourself in the position of your former partner. You need to have a strategy for reconciliation from their point of view. If you're the one wanting to reconcile, then you need to go where they're at, where they wanted to be connected with, not where you're at. That's one of the biggest failures I see with people who force reconciliation and fail, is because they come to the table saying, me, 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 my wants, my needs. I don't want to be lonely. I want you. I want this. And that's a very childlike, immature way of approaching relationships. And then they wonder why they fail. We need to heal ourselves, take care of our own pain, cope with our own pain, learn how to grow up in ourselves, fix ourselves, and then come to the table to our former partner with a strategy in empathy, understanding, and how do we communicate from their point of view. If you can't understand your former partner or their needs or their wants, why they struggled in the relationship, or what failures, what problems they have, you're never going to be successful at reconciliation. You're not. So step number one in that process is building a strategy. I definitely, this one's a little bit more nuanced, and it varies depending on the couple. It also varies depending on the extent of pain in the aftermath of the breakup, right? I have worked with couples who have dealt with some of the most egregious forms of pain, like affairs and divorces and stuff like that, or going no contact. But we need to process that our former partner has their own free will, they have their own ability to change, and not everybody heals at the same pace. So we need to include their personal space, their personal development as an individual human being, and respecting their own personal agency as well. Because reconciliation is a two-way street. You can't do everything right? It's okay. It's okay to be human. But if we want to have a space for reconciliation, then we need to have a strategy in place. And the best way to have that strategy is to begin with empathy and communication. So typically when that happens, people are in contact with their ex, or they are working together at reopening those connections. How do you establish love where there was a place of pain before? And again, tarot can be a phenomenal tool for this, for developing strategy and working through empathy. The very last thing that I want to talk about in my strategic approach is, of course, redefining success when it comes to reconciliation. I mentioned this earlier, but forcing reconciliation is not success. We want to naturally have that love come together. We want to naturally connect with our partner. We want them to want us as well. We don't want to force a relationship because we are two wounded humans running away from pain. Okay, that's not our goal at all. We don't want to force reconciliation. We want to have healing, higher levels of communication, deeper understandings of empathy, and we want to go back together if it's the right thing for both of us, if it's the right thing for both parties. So sometimes success, when it comes to reconciliation, sometimes success means parting ways. Sometimes it means saying bye, right? And so getting to the place of maturity and acceptance where we can say to someone, I love you, I love our time together, I've loved the relationship that I shared, but I can also have care for you, I can have care for you and respect for you, and also understand that this relationship is not in the highest good for both of us, and I'm okay with it. I'm at peace with it. I'm not in pain because of it. So sometimes success does mean walking away at the end of the day, if it's the best thing for both people, but it's walking away without pain, without anger, without resentment, and hopefully with a deeper understanding of yourself and what you did in a relationship, so that moving forward, you can have a better relationship. So for some couples, success means not having a reconciliation. For other couples, it does mean getting back together. But we want to make sure that the strategy in which we get back together is under love and understanding and personal growth, and not because of fear or pain. And I think that's really important. So I know I have a lot more to talk about on this subject, and I want to make other videos talking more specifically about my technical approach to reconciliation. But just to summarize, these are my 3 things that I hit when I work with clients. Number 1, reducing pain. Reducing pain to get the client into a state where they can honestly reflect on the situation to decide if reconciliation is truly right for them. That is step number 1. Step number 2 is doing a deep dive analysis into the relationship itself to understand why it failed and what needs to change, and then coming up with solutions for that change. There are solutions that we can personally take, and then there's solutions for other factors as well. This is going to vary by each person. Number 3 is, what is the best strategy for reconnection? What is the right path? This is going to vary again depending on the situation, but if we reopen the door of communication, how do we do it in a way that is empathetic and kind and in the best way for success? Because when we reopen that door to communication in an effort to reconcile, it can be a very, very vulnerable time. And if we don't have guidance or strategy, sometimes we can totally mess it up. We can make the situation worse. So step number 3 is having a very good strategy in place for reconciliation. And then number 4, finally, my final aspect of this approach is, what does success look like for this couple? What does success look like? When we finally get to a place of peace and honesty and maturity and calm, love between one another, what does success look like? Just some final thoughts. Tarot does not control other people, right? I do get some clients who say, can you pull cards and tell me when my ex is going to come back to me? And, sure, yeah, I can pull some cards, but what good is that going to do? What good is that going to do if your ex calls you and you're still the same, broken person that you were when you broke up? You still have the same problems. You still have the same failures. What good is it going to do? Why would you want to go back to an old relationship that caused you so much pain and heartbreak and to begin with? We want better. We want better for ourselves and for the people that we care about. And the first step in that is growth and change and personal accountability and introspection. So tarot is not about being a passive observer in our relationships, but becoming an active agent in pursuing what we want in life and also developing what is best for us in life. That is really my goal when I work with clients, is to give them the skills and the possibility to be active agents in their own lives, in their own relationships, to have the power for healing, not just in themselves, but in the other people in their lives. And sometimes healing can look very, very different for many people. Anyway, I gotta run. And let me know if you got questions about reconciliation you want me to cover in other videos, but I am going to show you the spreads that I have developed that I work with clients, and I'll show you examples on how I use those spreads. Reconciliation is very complex. There's a lot of different moving parts. People are complex, relationships are complex, so it's not really a cut and dry situation, and that is one of the reasons why I use spreads to help people work through this. It's a very, very powerful tool, and I love to see how it's grown and evolved over time. So let me know if you've got questions. I gotta run. Take care, everyone, and till next time.